Where's my fine, Doug Ford? Where's our fines, Doug Ford? They're lying to you.
Well, I'm with Kellyanne Wolf, and wow, what a brave lady she is. She's gone on record as saying she is the organizer of this event. So that means she faces fines starting at $10,000, going all the way to $100,000, maybe even jail time. Who knows? Kellyanne, are you worried that as the afternoon progresses, law enforcement is going to come in and give you a 5 or 6 figure fine?
No, I'm not, and I'll tell you why, David. Under Section 2C of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, we're protected to protest. That's why, Doug Ford, everybody has to start paying attention to the language that politicians use. Okay, he spoke of parties and gatherings like that, and social gatherings. This is not a social gathering. This is a protest, and you are 100% protected under your charter rights, which he cannot infringe on. He does not have the authority to infringe on by the charter. So you can protest. You're free to protest and gather. And it's freedom of assembly. So,
you know, Kellyanne, Doug Ford had a very rare Saturday press conference just an hour ago, and he was asked the question if the social gatherings include protests, and he said yes. So that's completely contrary to what you're saying.
Absolutely.
I guess this is something for the courts.
Yeah, absolutely. So I encourage Doug Ford, if he wants to find somebody, come and find me. I encourage you to. So, because I will set a precedent across this entire country as to what our laws mean and what they stand for. See, the government, David, the government likes to try and call upon the Emergency Measures Act as their source of authority for infringing upon the rights of Canadians, and that is completely false. On the first page of the Emergency Measures Act, it clearly states that this act is subject to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They do not have the authority. That is a blatant lie. And I suggest to the politicians out there, they become a little bit more familiar with their laws, considering they're supposed to be representing them and the people.
Well, Ontario Premier Doug Ford might refer to Kellyanne Wolf and her fellow protesters as a, quote, bunch of yahoos, end quote. But one thing is certain, Yahoo Nation is not backing down. They've been assembling on the lawns of Queen's Park since late April, and despite the specter of heavy fines, they apparently aren't going away anytime soon. By the way, if you're interested in being part of this movement, Yahoo Nation will be assembling at Yonge Dundas Square in Toronto tomorrow at noon prior to marching to Queen's Park. The question is, will they be fined this time, or will law enforcement continue to look the other way? In any event, here's what you had to say about their protest from last Saturday. Rebecca Slushinsky writes, "She, Kellyanne Wolf, rocks. So glad she's taking this on and is absolutely right. Protests are legal. We all have the right to have a say and stand up against corruption." Indeed, and I would suggest that if charges are laid, a constitutional challenge looms here. And another thing, why does Premier Ford call these people yahoos, yet he has absolutely nothing snarky to say when Black Lives Matter protesters show up on the lawns of Queen's Park? Yeah, why indeed? W. Scott writes, "What a complete joke Ford is. He had a chance to go down as the greatest premier in Ontario, but nope, too much cheesecake. One term, I'll put money on that one. Any takers?" Well, W. Scott, all Ford had to do was live up to his 2018 election promises of being for the people. Remember that little chestnut? Funny thing is, the vast majority of the folks showing up at Queen's Park protests openly admit to having voted for the Ford PCs 2 years ago. Yet Doug labels them yahoos as he consistently cuddles up to the mean girls in the media party, the very same reporters he used to denounce when they were on a journalistic jihad against his late great brother, Rob Ford. To paraphrase the late great Fred Willard, "Hey, Dougie, what happened?" Tame Thing writes, "Is anyone still delusional enough to think this is about a virus and not just a power grab? Indeed, going by the death toll numbers, not the positive case numbers, there is a case to be made that the pandemic is over." Meanwhile, as my boss Ezra Levent likes to note, politicians of every stripe during this pandemic got a little taste of totalitarian power. And you know what, folks? They kind of like the taste. Ina Christo writes, Doug Ford can go to some more weddings and then tell us not to go out. Yep, be it Ford or Toronto Mayor John Tory or Brampton Mayor crybaby Patrick Brown or even Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, we have surely learned one thing during this pandemic when it comes to our so-called fearless leaders, namely it is one law for thee and one law for me. And Wayne Hitchcock writes, the rallying cry for these protests should be, I'm Spartacus. When the cops come to arrest the organizer, everyone should claim to be the organizer. Oh, Wayne, wouldn't that be a Kodak moment for the ages? Let's just see what happens tomorrow at high noon. Hey folks, you know that we here at Rebel News, we never bend the knee, whether it's fighting for freedom of speech in the public square or going after politicians behaving badly, but we need your help. Sometimes it's for security costs, sometimes it's for lawyer fees. So if you can, please go to journalistdefensefund.com. That's journalistdefensefund.com. And if you're able to, make a donation. Thank you so much.